So I was thumbing to a video where a brother was illustrating the all kinds of gods, or whatever the fuck human will call it. He talk about the Hindu, he talk about um, the Chinese god, the Indian god, and the European god, right? You have the Hindus. I think the European God is the Jesus Christ. And then in that picture you have the black man, the African man, with a question mark on his head to imply that Indian God is what's that God name? And if you look at the image of that Indian God, it look like the Indian. When you look at the image of Chinese God, it look like the Chinese. When you look at, and if you look at the image of the European God, which is supposed to be Jesus Christ of Nazareth, not Jesus Christ of Africa. But then the last person in that hierarchy or curricula was a black man, the African man, with no image of his God, but of her God, but a sign on a question mark on his head. So when you look at this practical reality, you realize that they want to make us believe that there was something my brother, one of my biggest inspiration right now in the modern time, Dr. Umar Johnson. He said you should never expect to take from a white man in peace what he took from you in blood. See, that was quite a phrase that echoes in my membranes, in my blood, in my past, present, and in my spirituality. You see, that's one of the things that the African man have refused to understand. That's one of the reasons why you see every religion that exists in Africa have an edge over this Jesus Christ religion and spirituality that they impose on us, right? Because you don't expect what was built out of violence to be given back or taken by peace, right? We are enlightened creatures, awakened. We use our common sense and brain, so you have to be very, focused to understand and follow what I'm trying to say. So if you look at every country, continent, race, their God look like them. Africa, which is supposedly supposed to be the first Homo sapiens, the first organized people that had religion, that had science, that had medicine, that had spirituality, that had everything. Africa, history has proven, fact, truth, that we are the first people that began all these things. So that will not take me to one of those verses in the Bible where Jesus said the first shall become the last. Use your brain, connect this dot, right? Jesus said the first shall become the last, and the last shall become the first. That is you they are talking about, brother. Look at the programming. Think. So if we were people that have existed from the history that I read now, if you go to the Portuguese, the Brazil, the Americans, the real original people were, where you have the Moors, all of them were black people, that would justify the fact that every race that is existing on this world emanated from black, right? No wonder Jesus said the first shall be the last. My people perish for lack of thinking, common sense, and using their brain. So back to my point. So when I look at this analogy, I saw this brother put up all the every countries and continent and race and religion God. And there was one thing that triggered me, that intrigued me, that interests me. All of their God and gods look just like them. Then when you come to Africa, oh God, God damn, it's uh, God, gee, damn. Africa is the only creature on earth that consider his history, his ancestor, his stories, his mother, his grandfather, his fathers as witches and wizards, and the god of his ancestors as idol worship. So when I hear people talk about the future, this prayer, fasting, this, that everything they talk about in Africa, to me, I believe it's all a noise, man. It is every effort that you are trying to talk about in Africa is just a waste of time because you need to understand the role of spirituality in the life of human beings, man. Africa is the only continent on earth that is like a child who abandoned his history, his family, his parents, everything that made him or her, and then identify with something else and think that he has a future just because maybe he got offered some portion in the table or something. Illusion. So to me, as far as the truth and history is concerned, Africans at this point since slavery up until now has no spirituality. All this foreign religion in Africa is nothing but political deception, is nothing but educational deception. So to me, for us to even start talking about any kind of spiritual hope, redemption, heaven and hell, we need to first identify with a God that look just like us, just like everybody. We are not the only one. Every human race on earth is buying, worshiping, calling on a God that look just like them. It's only the African man that for good abandoned, bewitched, and call his or our God, our ancestors to be idol and witches and wizards, and ran after somebody else's God. So the only proof of spirituality to me, as an example from the other human race, the only time I will look at Africa and have the hopes that we have a future in religion and spirituality is when we begin to identify with a God that looked like us in the image to start with. I will want the only time I will ever associate myself with any religion and God on this planet Earth apart from the God of me and my ancestors is when African begin to identify with a God that is black. That is all I have to say. We are just spiritual slave right now since slavery until now. If you are God, if you are Savior, the worst part, the most annoying part is when I hear people put any kind of God above our ancestors. When you ask them, they're trying to give you some example of some suffer, betrayal, torture, die on the cross. So you are trying to tell me if you are not sick people, if slavery, the master, the white man not is not still has not brainwashed you, if he has not taken all your common sense. So you mean to tell me that there is any sacrifice, there is any crucifixion, there is any suffer, there is any temptation that is greater than that of the ancestors? Do you know how many black people were taken as slaves? Do you know how many of them perished in the ocean, in the sea? Have you ever seen any slave existing in the Arab countries? Have you ever wondered and asked yourself, where are the black slaves that were taken from Africa to the Arab countries? So when I sit today among these so-called educated Africans, and they have the nerves to put any other God above our ancestors, that's when I realized that there is no future for us. There is no hope for us. There is no heaven for us. There is no hell for us. We are just slaves, just like our ancestors. But at least the slavery of our ancestors were worthwhile. They died for a cause. Ours is, what is the cause? To me, the only God that exists in this world, be it from sun, moon, life, death, failure, is those men that were captured, chained, killed, amputated, thrown into the ocean, molested, killed, and all. That, to me, is the only God that I will identify with until the end of time. And to the African child, until you come to a point where you begin to understand and feel and understand the sacrifices of those who paid the price, blood shed, before we even get to talk about this so-called illusionary independence and civilization, education, and all this bullshit. You are just, in fact, the slavery of our ancestors has a meaning. Yours is nothing. That's all I have to tell to this generation, to Africans. Read your history. Read their history. I want an Africa where we have the images of black people that were amputated, murdered, chained, enslaved in our houses. Not the image of any motherfucking white man, white God, white image and bullshit. That is the Africa. And in Nigeria, we now will begin to have hopes that we stand a chance to become and redeem and go back and become the real people that we were created and meant to be. I conclude by telling the whole black man in the world and Africa to put your common sense and your brains, use your brains and your common sense and your history, no matter how dark and dirty it is, and your ancestors above every religion and every god on earth. And until you do that, I feel sorry for you. I feel pity for you. That's all I have to tell you. Because if you understand the grip and the power of religion on the black man, you will know that there is no certificate, there is no education, there is no politics, There is no Yahoo Yahoo. There is nothing that is greater than our emancipation from religion. Until we emancipate ourselves from the white man manipulational religion, we will forever, ever, ever remain slave. That consider it prophecy or whatever the fuck you wanna believe. Use your brain, my brother. It is time for us to put our brain and common sense above religion and the white man God. Our brain, our common sense, our history, and our ancestors. That is where we will find our spot in this planet Earth, in this heaven. The universe is the heaven, don't be played. There is no heaven anywhere. The heaven you hear is here on earth. It's inside of you. May the God of our ancestors help deliver and emancipate all black child all over the world as we begin this awakening. So help us, the God of our ancestors. Salute, one Africa.